Welcome to In Their 20s, a podcast created for people in their 20s. Today we spoke with Michele Schneider. She is the Senior Vice President of Global Workplace Services at Salesforce. I was super excited for this interview coming into it because we've been trying to get someone from Salesforce for quite some time, and Michele has an amazing professional journey, so we're super excited to share this interview with you today. Before we dive in, make sure you are subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We have some very big interviews coming soon, so continue to share In Their 20s with your friends. Okay, let's dive in with Michele. So Michele, I would love to begin at the beginning. I saw that you, of course, went to school at Santa Barbara. Would love to hear about the experiences and some takeaways from your college days.
Yes, of course. So I'm very fortunate to have gone to school in Santa Barbara. Clearly, it's a beautiful place. I do have to give my parents credit. When I was in 8th grade, they liked to vacation there, and they said you should go to college here. So that's how one of the ways I ended up selecting it, and had a few friends go down there as well. So great place to go to school for me personally. It kind of had that balance of social, many different groups that could be together, and you could move around from group to group, and just I love being outside and playing sports and doing things like that. So was a great place for me to go to school.
Of course.
Let me be very forthcoming and tell you I was on academic probation.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I enjoyed it a lot, too much, my first quarter down there. And so had to recover from that and get good grades. And I did go to summer school, but it turned out fine. But it was not a happy time for my parents or me.
Of course, I bet.
So,
And, I mean, hey, it's work hard, play hard, right? So
yeah.
that's good that you at least, learned your mistake and corrected it. And of course, you bounce back times 100. I mean, look what you're doing now. So
Yeah. Well, I would just say, like, don't be too hard on yourself. Not that grades don't matter, they clearly do matter, but working hard, and there's other things that you can do or that are a part of you, that don't mean that you have to, graduate with a 4.0 in order to get a job. There's many opportunities out there.
of course. And I know a lot of times like students are in school right now, and yes, maybe they're not having the best grades that they think that they can get, or probably their parents as well. And they're taking these classes and they're really questioning if they're going to use this in their careers. Was there one class or maybe just a general skill or even just a personal habit that you developed while in college that you can confidently say you still use today?
So yes, I would say research. When I was in a class or a group of classes that I was in, and I got into the research, I loved it, and that is something I do now. When I talk to somebody, when I'm interviewing, when I'm talking to another company, I will always take the time to look at a website, to look up the person, to look up the LinkedIn, whatever it is. Maybe even look up competitors or similar companies. And that is something I learned in school, and that it's a practice I do today.
I love that so much. I was a PR major with a minor in advertising and marketing. Right now I am in sales, and of course I have a podcast. And so I'm not, focused so much on PR, but I will say, I mean, from my PR days in school and the internships I've had, you get into these certain majors, you have these internships, and there are always so many skills that you can extract and you will be able to use throughout your career. So it's really amazing hearing that you really benefited so much from research during those days and still use it today. I will say then, looking after school, because we're going to get to Salesforce, of course. I have so many questions about your career with Salesforce. It has been a long career. I believe you began in 2008, but before that, looking at a few of your post-grad positions, advice just for 20-somethings that are exiting school, they're starting their first job out of college. They're curious if they will be there for 2 years, 5 years, or maybe even the rest of their careers. What advice do you have for 20-somethings in that space?
Again, I will say be patient with yourself. What I ended up doing was I wasn't sure where I wanted to work. I was doing a little bit of interviewing, but a contract opportunity came up actually for me to work for 1 week at a company. And I took that 1 week opportunity and I walked around the floor and I asked people if they needed help, and people would give me more work. So I stayed another week, another week, another week. I eventually got hired at that company and was there for 5 years. So I would say not everything has to be that full-time job. It can be the week, the month, the 6 month fill in, depending on what that is. And it could introduce you to other people. It can introduce you to the opportunity, or it also can show you this is the size company I like. This is not the size company I like. And then you can move on and find something else that might be a better fit.
Of course. I love that so much. I think within that also just like making sure that no matter what you're doing, if it's a short stint, a contracting job, or you plan for staying at a company for a long time, you just want to have a plan. So of course, if you're going into a position and saying, look, I only want to do this job per se for maybe, a few weeks to gain skills in X or, be able to work on Y, you want to make sure that you have a plan because again, those experiences are really going to be super helpful for your career. So it's really good to know, looking at your post-grad careers. And now for Salesforce, though, I saw on your LinkedIn you began your career in 2008 with Salesforce. You have had numerous positions. I'd love for you to just be able to walk us through some of the unique things that you have done at Salesforce and just the benefit of also horizontal growth. I know a lot of times we're constantly looking to move up in a vertical setting. So I want to have this position, which leads to this one, which leads to a greater payday here. But were there any times in your career where you decided to make a horizontal shift towards a position?
So I'm glad you brought that up. I actually feel that moving horizontally is a great opportunity, and especially when you're at a company that encourages it, allows it, and wants people to do that. So at Salesforce, that is something that we do encourage and support. I honestly wish I had done that more in my earlier career.
Mhm.
My career is very linear in events, and had I gone into other marketing disciplines, it would have made me a more marketing generalist. So had I touched on PR or product marketing or marketing communications, looking back, I wish I would have done a little bit more of that instead of continuing on the events path. I do love events, no question. It's the career of choice for me. So I'm very lucky I found it in my first job is how I feel about that. So I do think talking about horizontal moves within your company with your manager is okay, and that should be something that is having coffee with people, meeting other people,
Mhm.
networking with other people within the company. I think that's a great idea. As far as my own path within Salesforce, I joined at a time when the company was about 2,500, 3,000 people.
Wow.
So super hyper growth mode. Yeah, we're at
Yes.
60,000 people today. It was a 6 month backfill maternity leave. The company I was at before had been bought by Oracle, and I had chosen the package instead of staying. And this opportunity came up at Salesforce, and I was like, sure, I'll go work for 6 months in San Francisco. Won't that be cool? And get out of Silicon Valley, where I am here.
Mhm.
And then after I started, they obviously offered me a job. And the program that I took on was just in the beginning stages of it. So I was really able to grow it, to be as innovative as I wanted to be with it. It was a domestic program, but then I started networking and meeting with my international colleagues and started sharing with them what we were doing and the value of what we were doing. So I was able to provide growth for myself and my team, and that we weren't just doing US events, but we were able to do these events globally. So that was a really exciting thing. But it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of bridge building. It was a lot of relationship building, because teams can be territorial about their budgets or their marketing or whatever it is they're working on. But if you can show teams a value you can provide them so that they can do other things that will then increase the value of what they're doing for their management, it can be a real great partnership.
Love that so much. Value always has to be a two-way street. You can ask, but of course, when you're asking for things, you need to always find ways to return the favor or be able to, work in tandem with other people. So I love your, just speaking about value is always super important. And now looking at what you're specifically doing today,
Mm.
you are the Senior Vice President of Global Workplace Services. For those in the audience and listening that do not understand clearly, what the position entails, would love to just hear more about what you're currently working on.
Absolutely. So in my role now, I am responsible for all of our Salesforce offices globally, which is about 120 offices. And then within those offices, my team is responsible for facilities and for the employee experience, for the guest experience.
Mm.
So really the whole hospitality element of when you step into one of our spaces, what is your experience like? My team is responsible for that.
I love that. And if you were to look now at, the amazing professional career that you have had, just, one piece of advice for your 20-year-old self, before you started that postgrad job, before you started career with Salesforce, what advice would you give yourself?
I would take advantage of people that I know and that probably my friends and colleagues knew. I wish I leveraged a little bit more through my college networking. I didn't. And I will say that there are great resources and there are great groups out there that you can leverage to meet people. So since then, I have been a member of some associations. I have been the chairwoman of an event association, and just getting to know people in the industry and people that are like-minded. Now I see myself as somebody who wants to pass on, knowledge and experience around doing events and hospitality, and how can I help others? So finding and connecting with somebody like that or a group like that, I think is really invaluable.
I love that advice so much, Michelle. And that's something that I do really appreciate about these interviews. We could be interviewing someone in the event space. We could be interviewing, the most powerful woman in banking, or someone that's ran for president, or someone that even played basketball against Michael Jordan. What I love about these interviews is, our advice, and the advice that you shared, for example, can be for everybody. You just spoke so much about networking. You spoke so much about value. And I just love so much that within this interview, it can be for any student just looking to create a strong career. But just my final question for you will be specifically for students looking to build a career within hospitality, within events. If you were to give that student an advice, any advice, what would that advice be?
So I would say, don't worry too much about the brand name of the company or the group that you're working with. It's really about your skill set. I'm looking for horizontal skill set. I'm looking for experience that you can parlay into other things. So whether it's budget experience or organizational experience or event experience, doesn't matter what it is. If it's in college, if it's at a restaurant, if it's with your local community, anything like that is showing that baseline skill set. You can really learn anything at a company. You can learn a company's products, you can learn how a company markets, and it's okay. You may want to do software one day and turn around and do retail the next day, but those base skills that you keep building on I think are the ones that are the most valuable and the most transferable.
Love that. And I think that's just great advice for any 20 something. Again, like during the pandemic, use this time to really build your portfolio of skills. And of course, make yourself, attractive and be able to stand out across competition. I think now is the time, really, it is the time to build up on your skills. So, Michelle, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your insights for 20 somethings. This was really exciting. Of course, you are our first interview guest from Salesforce. I've been really trying to get someone from Salesforce for a long time, and I'm really glad that it could be as special as you. So thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this as well. So hope to get to talk to you soon.
Of course, we'll stay in touch. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.